Welcome to CSIS Online. The way we bring you events is changing, but we'll still present live analysis and award-winning digital media from our Dracopolis Ideas Lab, all on your time, live or on demand. This is CSIS Online.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started now. Tom's book is really a fantastic read, but I do think that folks, especially in the United States, are going to find the book controversial, and that's a great thing about a book, because if a book doesn't generate a conversation, then it may not be worth reading. But this is a glass half full story of China's economy and the management of the financial system. And that's offered at a time when U.S.-China relations are declining, and attacks from all different corners in the United States of China's system are growing. And there's this argument that China's economy, how it manages that economy, is incompatible with the international system. And as a result, the U.S. and others need to reduce their exposure to China's unique risks. The book tries to answer the question, how did China manage to do it? How have they managed to continue to grow without a major financial crisis? And can they keep it up? I'm going to turn the floor over to Tom in just a minute. He'll introduce his book, and then we'll hear from several commentators, all leading experts on China's financial system in their own right. So I'm going to turn things over to Tom. He is Bloomberg's chief economist. Prior to joining Bloomberg, Tom worked as China economics correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, as an advisor to the UK executive director of the IMF, and policy analyst at the British Treasury and European Commission. He's also an author of Understanding China's Economic Indicators, which delve deeply into Chinese statistics. Tom, thank you so much for writing this book, and really look forward to your presentation and the conversation this morning. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Scott. Just give me a minute while I share my presentation. Fabulous. Well, look, it's really never been more important that all of us understand not just China's economy, but the intersection between China's economy, China's financial system, China business, China leadership, China security. And I can't think of anyone in the world who pulls those pieces together more smartly and more comprehensively than the team at CSIS. So I'm delighted that CSIS would host this book talk, and thank you, Scott, and the team there for helping pull this together. As I prepared to launch my book over the internet, I was thrilled to be doing it with CSIS, but I also had a concern. When you do a book launch in person, the audience is physically there, and they feel a kind of moral obligation to buy a copy of the book. When you do a book launch over the internet, perhaps that sense of moral obligation isn't there, or isn't quite as strong. So I've devised an extremely clever mechanism, which I'm now going to use to try and ensure that I engineer maximum sales from this event. So before I start my presentation, I'd like everyone to raise their right hand and repeat after me. I, Tom Orlik, and here, of course, you'd insert your own name. I, Tom Orlik, pledge that immediately after the presentation, I will order a copy of China, the Bubble That Never Pops. Now that's the compulsory part of the presentation, compulsory part of the pledge, and I'm not an unreasonable man, so the second part is voluntary, but feel free to follow along if you want to, and also one for each of my friends and relatives, and I will also leave a positive review on Amazon. Okay, so with that done, let me jump into my presentation. So I lived in China for 11 years. From 2007 through 2018. And for that entire time, there was a consistent thread of pessimism, even a thread of doom, running through the Western view on what was happening in China. Yes, the story went, 10% growth looks impressive, but poke a little bit beneath the surface and there are problems. Debt is too high. China will have a financial crisis. Leadership can't execute on reform. They're too conservative. They're too trapped by vested interests. The state sector is too big and too inefficient. And China's medium-term growth prospects just aren't that strong. There's a middle-income trap. There's a demographic problem as the workforce ages. And yet, here we are in 2020, and the China bubble has not popped. So my motivation in putting pen to paper for my book was to try and understand why. What are the hidden sources of resilience in China's economy? How does China continue to defy the pessimistic predictions of collapse? And how should that shape the way we in the US and Europe think about engagement with China going forwards? So in the presentation today, I want to touch on 4 areas where I think we don't have the story wrong on China, but we have the emphasis in the wrong place. And I want to talk in particular about debt, reform, the state sector, and the future.